Have you ever shared a moment of triumph with a friend, seen the congratulations on their lips, yet felt a chill of suspicion deep in your gut? It's not the open fire of hostility you can fight, but something far more subtle, a quiet venom seeping into the intimacy you cherish. It's the pause that stretches too long before their applause, the practiced sound of a "I'm so happy for you," or the faint, involuntary shadow that crosses their face when your light shines brighter than their own. Have you ever experienced the uncanny dissonance of a friend's praise? The words are warm, a congratulation for your success, yet a coldness emanates from their eyes. It's a hostility so subtle you can't name it, not cruel words, but a pause that lingers too long, an applause that feels rehearsed, or a faint shadow of loss when your joy outshines their own. This is the mark of hidden envy, a whisper corrosive enough to stain the intimacy of a genuine bond. Friendship, meant to be a sanctuary, can become an arena. Beneath the surface of mutual support, a quiet war rages, where envy disguises itself as loyalty. This betrayal cuts deepest because it emanates from the person you allowed closest, the one who knows your vulnerabilities and dreams. The neurobiology of betrayal, proximity and pain. The notion that we only envy those in our immediate orbit is a psychological cornerstone. We don't measure ourselves against distant idols, we measure against the proximate peer, the friend whose life mirrors our own, whose recent victory reflects what we secretly fear we lack. The brain's primal tally. Neuroscience explains the gut punch of witnessing a friend's triumph. Studies on brain activity reveal that success is not universally celebrated within close circles. The brain's reward circuits, fueled by dopamine, light up brightly for the person succeeding. However, in the jealous friend, the very act of witnessing this success can simultaneously activate the anterior cingulate cortex and the amygdala, regions associated with social pain, exclusion, and threat. To the envious mind, your triumph is not a shared moment, it's a zero-sum game where your gain registers as their personal loss. The brain, operating on an ancient, tribal script, interprets their peers' ascent as a potential threat to their own standing, resources, or social acceptance. This is a primal fear, being outshone could mean being left behind. The smiling mask. This biological script forces the envious friend into an untenable position, they must outwardly celebrate while inwardly suffering. They wear a mask of loyalty, smiling as they whisper subtle doubts or offer discouragement veiled as practical advice. Sensing this unspoken friction, the envied friend often engages in self-shrinkage, dampening their light, hesitant to share joy, to protect the fragile bond. This act of self-betrayal is the ultimate cost of proximity-based envy. The deep roots of comparison, childhood scarcity. The monster of jealousy is rarely born in adulthood, it's conceived in the fertile ground of childhood comparison. Envy is not malice, it is a profound hunger for validation, a cry for the unshakable knowledge that you matter. Conditional love and insecure attachment. The seeds are planted when a child learns that love and attention are conditional. When a parent's eyes drift from one child's achievement to another's perceived excellence, the unspoken message is delivered, approval must be earned. According to attachment theory, when a child's bond with caregivers is colored by this fear, they develop an insecure attachment style. They become scanners, constantly scanning the social environment for signs of favoritism, comparing themselves endlessly to those closest. The scoreboard, school report cards and early friendships solidify this system. Achievement becomes a scoreboard, and recognition is equated with survival. The dopamine hit from praise teaches the child that excellence secures love, the absence of praise registers as a form of social danger. The jealous adult is carrying the hidden wound of that child, shaped by years of feeling unseen. Their reaction to your success is not an assessment of your merits, but a sudden, painful relapse into a childhood fear of scarcity, the belief that there isn't enough love, enough recognition, or enough success to go around. The cultural feeding ground, social media and the cult of performance. Jealousy is not an individual failing, it is a symptom of a competitive culture that actively promotes comparison and scarcity. Society itself is designed to turn friends into rivals. The myth of meritocracy. We are taught that worth is measured by status, wealth, and titles. The friend who climbs highest is rewarded, while the quiet act of support and loyalty remains untelevised. This cultural script instills a profound contradiction: you are expected to be wholly supportive and relentlessly competitive. This dual demand makes genuine, unconditional friendship nearly impossible to sustain. The hypercomparison engine. Social media acts as the final, merciless magnifier of this cultural wound. We are constantly exposed to curated, filtered realities where every victory is polished and every life is a brand. When a friend posts their perfect success, it's no longer just their triumph, it's a performance for a global audience. This constant exposure activates the brain's comparison circuits relentlessly, leaving the observer caught in a perpetual loop of admiration twisting into resentment. The tragedy is that friendship, in its purest form, is meant to be the one space untouched by this hunger for external validation. Yet, in a world that profits from making you feel less than, even intimacy becomes a performance arena. The alchemization of envy, transforming the shadow. Is this shadow destined to ruin every bond it touches? Not necessarily. Envy, when faced, can become a teacher, a compass pointing toward unaddressed personal wounds and necessary growth. The path for the envious. Transformation begins with awareness. The jealous friend must summon the courage for what Carl Jung termed shadow work, confronting the rejected parts of the self. This means admitting, I feel envy, and then tracing its energy not outward, blaming the friend, but inward, examining the unmet need. From envy to aspiration, the bitter sting of envy can be alchemized into admiration and aspiration. This reframing allows the person to recognize that another's light doesn't extinguish their own, it merely illuminates what is possible. Success is not a scarce flame, it is a fire that multiplies when shared. The path for the envied. For the envied, healing involves boundaries and discernment. To continually shrink your joy to appease a friend's insecurity is an act of self-betrayal that will ultimately destroy your spirit. Choosing self-loyalty, you must learn to protect your light, choosing truth over performance. This may involve compassionately distancing yourself from a friend whose shadow refuses to transform. Protecting your spirit is not abandoning compassion, it is choosing not to participate in your own emotional diminishment. The ultimate lesson of jealousy is this: a true friend is a quiet miracle. They are the person who can stand behind you, celebrate you unconditionally, and feel no threat when your light is brightest. This rare loyalty is proof that love can endure even the deepest shadows. Protect it fiercely. The architecture of trust, a final choice. The specter of envy forces us to confront a fundamental question about human nature: what does it mean to be truly loyal, not just to others, but to ourselves? You know how delicate trust is. It takes years to build, yet only a moment of exposed rivalry to shatter. The jealous friend holds up a mirror to our own vulnerabilities, reminding us how quickly affection can curdle into competition when touched by the fear of scarcity. And yet, this painful lesson reveals the extraordinary nature of true friendship. In a world that relentlessly teaches us to compare, to measure worth in fragmented achievements, the friend who chooses love over envy is a rare and quiet miracle. They remind you that joy doesn't need to be divided, it multiplies when shared. Beyond the shadow, a call to courage. We've traced jealousy from its primal roots in the brain's survival instinct to its cultural amplification on the modern stage. But the story does not end in analysis, it culminates in a conscious choice. Envy is a corrosive force, but it is not destiny. It is an invitation to engage in the most crucial work of all, the work of self-possession and radical honesty. 1. The courage to reclaim your light. For the envied, the choice is to stop shrinking. You must reclaim your successes as rightfully yours, untainted by the fear of someone else's judgment. To dim your joy for the comfort of another is a betrayal of your own potential. Protecting your spirit is an act of loyalty to yourself. This doesn't mean becoming ruthless, it means choosing clarity over the poisoned silence. It means accepting that some bonds, if they demand your diminution, must be released. 2. The courage to own the wound. For the envious, the choice is to look inward. You must be willing to confront the unmet needs of the child within. Jealousy is a signal that your worth is still tied to external validation. The path to freedom begins when you stop using your friend as a measuring stick and start using their success as a blueprint for your own action. What is the success you truly desire? What small step can you take today to move toward it, rather than simply resenting the steps taken by another? The New Covenant, friendship as shared growth. The most profound friendships are not those that survive without conflict, but those that use conflict as fuel for mutual growth. When the shadow of envy surfaces, and it inevitably will, in some form, it becomes a chance to establish a new covenant. Honesty over performance. Instead of forced celebration, seek honest connection. Sometimes, acknowledging the difficulty of supporting a friend's monumental success can strengthen the bond more than a practiced smile. Empathy for the struggle. The envied friend can create space for this honesty, offering compassion not for the envy, but for the pain that underlies it. This means recognizing the difference between the friend who is genuinely trying to overcome their insecurity and the one who is committed to subtle sabotage. Building your own fire. The healthiest friendships are those where both people are busy tending their own fires, not gazing wistfully at the others. They are built on the principle that light is limitless. Ultimately, this entire journey is an examination of vulnerability. The jealous friend is vulnerable in their insecurity, the envied friend is vulnerable in their trust. The final question remains: when you look at your friend's light, do you feel diminished, or do you feel illuminated? In the answer to that question lies the fate of the bond, and the measure of your own self-acceptance. Cherish the friend who can truly cheer for you. For in a world that feeds envy, a loyal friend is not just a companion, they are living proof that love can transcend the primitive urge to compete. The legacy of loyalty, the measure of a true friend. The corrosive mirror of envy, having exposed our deepest vulnerabilities and fears, ultimately forces us to confront the enduring definition of loyalty. What remains after the neurobiological urges and cultural pressures have been accounted for? Only the conscious, human choice. Philosophy's verdict: envy as self-imprisonment. Philosophers across the ages have issued a dire warning: envy is the most corrosive emotion, not primarily because it harms the other, but because it devours the self. It locks the envious person into a perpetual state of comparison, making another's life their psychological prison. They are chained to bitterness, unable to appreciate their own journey because they are constantly preoccupied with someone else's destination. Friendship, at its best, is liberation. It is the space where comparison dissolves, allowing you the freedom to be wholly yourself without the fear of judgment or the need to perform. To stand beside someone and genuinely rejoice in their light as if it were your own is perhaps one of the most radical acts of love a human can offer in a world built on scarcity. The fragile miracle: why true friendship endures. The friend who can celebrate you without condition, who carries no shadow behind their smile, is a fragile miracle. They remind us that human connection is capable of transcending the primal, evolutionary script that pushes us toward competition. The choice to be a loyal friend is a moral choice, a daily refusal to succumb to the easier path of resentment. It is the understanding that light does not need to be divided, and that success, when celebrated, multiplies its warmth. When you encounter that rare loyalty, you are not simply encountering a kind person, you are encountering proof that love can endure the test of proximity and success. The final reckoning: defining your core values. The corrosive journey through the shadow of jealousy always leads to a reckoning. The silence and suspicion it creates become a forceful, if painful, pressure, causing some friendships to shatter completely under the weight of unspoken rivalry. Yet, for those relationships that are met with radical honesty and compassion, the pressure forges a bond that is deeper and more resilient than before. The final, enduring legacy of confronting jealousy is that it compels both individuals to define and live by their core values. The question ceases to be, "Why does my friend envy me?" and becomes, "What kind of person and what kind of friend do I choose to be?" The enduring wisdom gained. The experience of battling the shadow of comparison yields profound wisdom for both sides. For the envied, reclaiming non-negotiable worth. You learn the crucial lesson that your worth is non-negotiable. Your light, your joy, and your success are inherent parts of you, not commodities to be traded for affection. Genuine connection requires the courage to be fully seen. You realize that any friendship that demands you to shrink yourself, to fit the narrow confines of someone else's insecurity is a relationship that costs too much. The true lesson is self-loyalty, choosing to protect your spirit and your achievements, because that is the only way to attract and sustain unconditional love. For the healed envious, earning self-respect. The path out of envy leads directly to profound self-respect. This is gained by owning the wound, acknowledging the pain and scarcity that fuel the resentment, and stepping out of the shadow. This is the moment of maturity where you realize that your energy is better spent tending to your own garden than observing and resenting the fertility of another's. The friend's success is reframed not as a loss to you, but as a map of potential, motivating you to pursue your own distinct path. The ultimate measure of true friendship. Protect that loyalty. Cherish it. For the truth is simple and profound, true friendship is not measured in how often someone stands beside you, but in how sincerely they can stand behind you, even when your light outshines their own. This unconditional support is the gold standard of connection. Actionable steps, cultivating loyalty and boundaries. To apply this wisdom and actively strengthen your bonds against the shadow of comparison, here are practical steps you can take this week. Practice intentional celebration, the loyalty test. When a close friend shares good news, pause before you speak. Check your internal response. Is there any flicker of comparison or subtle competitive thought? If so, acknowledge it without judgment, then actively choose a response of pure, enthusiastic joy. Write down a specific, genuine compliment about their effort or character, not just the outcome. I know how hard you worked for that, your dedication is inspiring. Define and state your boundaries. The self-loyalty act. Identify a space in your life where you've been shrinking yourself. This could be habitually downplaying achievements or censoring your dreams around a specific friend. This week, share a piece of good news without apologizing or downplaying it. If the friend responds with subtle discouragement, calmly state a boundary. I appreciate your caution, but I'm choosing to focus on the joy of this moment right now. Engage in proactive self-comparison. The envy cure. If you find yourself envious of a friend, immediately pivot your focus inward. Ask yourself, what is the underlying need or goal that this envy is highlighting?